Welcome to the No Panic Zone. I'm Steve Gruber. I'm America's voice. I'm an American first kind of guy. One to call it as I see it, balls and strikes, black and white. You may not like it, but that's the way I roll, so let's get to it. Here are the things you need to know right now. Three big things. Number one, the push for emergency COVID restrictions is back. The power players want the powers back they had during the pandemic, a crisis they desperately want to jumpstart again. Number two, the document crisis getting worse by the day, it seems, for Joe Biden and his White House. Every day more questions, every day more stonewalling, and hiding from those questions. Number three, the global elites are in Davos, Switzerland, delivered by private jets that leave enormous carbon footprints as they come screaming in from every ivory tower on Earth. The principals on those jets descending the stairs as if they're gods among us peasants, and then declaring their intellectual dominance and domain and dominion over the world in what they demand. For those that dare speak up or fight back, they will censor you. Make sure you are not allowed to be heard. Silence, peasant. In Davos, those on stage are bragging about making free speech criminal, too. Yeah, they want to silence you, and bragging it will soon be in America. This is the VP of the European Union. Listen.
Well, we need the people who understand the language and the case law in the country. Because what qualifies as hate speech, as illegal hate speech, which you will have soon also in the US, I think that we have a strong reason why we have this in the criminal law. We need the platforms to simply work with the language and to identify such cases. The AI would be too dangerous.
Yeah. Soon in America, to censor you. And it's not just elitists in Europe that are focused on silencing anyone they don't agree with, but alleged journalists in the United States are also beating the drum of censorship. Hard to believe, but those that should be defenders of free speech have become the biggest opponents of the United States Constitution. And like a horror film of the journalist apocalypse, zombie apocalypse, the human bowling ball, Brian Stelter. He was the one appearing on the stage in Davos to promote censorship. You know, the guy shamed and fired from CNN, the disgraced alleged journalist, the human bowling ball. Even a far-left congressman, Seth Moulton, wouldn't bite on all of it. Listen to this.
Congressman, should we learn in the U.S. something from the structures that the Europeans have adopted?
Well, look, I think in general the U.S. has a lot to learn in terms of data regulation, internet regulation. I mean, you're way ahead of us in that regard. But we believe very strongly in free speech. I believe very strongly in free speech. And I think there is a healthy concern in the United States that the EU might be going a little too far. So I mean, I think you look at this from both perspectives. Yes, they're ahead of us, and they're doing some smart things that I know when I use the internet in Europe, and I get all the warnings about cookies and whatnot, that actually makes me feel safer. That makes me feel better. And a lot of American consumers want that level of security on the internet for your own data privacy and whatnot.
The human bowling ball, like Brian Stelter did, the disgraced former CNN staffer. Calling him a journalist is a joke. You know, little fat Brian is a joke. Anyhow, the New York Times publisher A.G. Salzberger was on the stage discussing censorship, too. And I agree, the New York Times should just be banned for general reckless behavior with the facts on a daily basis, for spreading disinformation on topics like Russian collusion, COVID vaccines, mask mandates, and, of course, Hunter Biden's laptop, that the paper also referred to as disinformation. So naturally, it was another attack on Donald Trump. Make no mistake. Listen to this.
And to be clear, actually, terms like fake news and enemies of the people have been popularized cyclically in society and in some of the most, repressive and dangerous moments, Nazi Germany, Stalinist Russia, right? So I think anytime we're hearing language like that applied to, a free press, or more broadly free expression, I think we should be really worried. Look, I think that there's no doubt that society seems to have, at some level, accepted how much the information ecosystem has been poisoned. By you. And I think it's going to require real sustained effort from the platforms, from political leaders, from business leaders, and from consumers themselves to reject that.
These windbags just like to hear themselves talk. Yeah, there's a real problem with American media created by American media. Nobody trusts the American media because of the American media. Double standards, disinformation flowing from the American media. This is the media that said Russia, 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 claiming they had all of the stories. The New York Times won a Pulitzer Prize on the Russian campaign to help Donald Trump that didn't exist. Think about that. The Washington Post and the New York Times both won Pulitzer Prizes for covering a story that wasn't real. Both of those papers also buried the Hunter Biden laptop story that was real. These two papers are an embarrassment. Sulzberger has nobody to blame but himself and his team and his reckless crew. But he says disinformation is the biggest threat to America today. I agree. I believe Sulzberger and others like him should apologize to the American people. They won't, but they should. Listen.
So I think if you look at this question of disinformation, I think it maps basically to every other major challenge that we are grappling with as a society, and particularly the most existential among them. So disinformation and the broader set of misinformation, conspiracy, propaganda, clickbait, the broader mix of bad information that's corrupting the information ecosystem. What it attacks is trust. And once you see trust decline, what you then see is societies start to fracture. And so you see people fracture along tribal lines, and that immediately undermines pluralism. Mm-hmm. And, the undermining of pluralism is probably the most dangerous thing that can happen to a democracy.
What a sanctimonious jackass. Here's a guy born with a silver spoon in his mouth and maybe a few other places. The Sulzberger family has been in charge of the New York Times since before I was born, and you. And this sanctimonious jackass sits there and lectures us about credibility of media and disinformation and conspiracy theories after that paper won a Pulitzer Prize, which it has not given back, for covering a story that did not happen. In detail, at least. They covered it in detail with a lot of anonymous sources, a story that did not happen. And he wants to blame others for the lack of trust in American media. My friend, you have nobody to blame but yourself. And if you want to establish trust in American media, then start doing your damn job. Be a journalist, not an advocate. Be a journalist, not a partisan. Be a journalist, not a sanctimonious jackass. Oh, no, I got that off my chest. I feel a little bit better. How about you? We'll take a quick break. More from Davos as they plan your future after this.